the big picture, it is 9 a.m. on your Friday morning. This is our favorite day of the week, isn't it, Collin?
It is.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Bryn, Caswell.
And I'm Collin, Dorsey.
Can you believe August is almost over?
I'm kind of glad it is. It means we're back closer to cooler weather.
Okay, Mr. Fall, you like that?
I do not like summer weather at all.
Okay. Well, let's get to our top headlines for today. We are following the arrest of 3 people in a deadly short north shooting that happened Sunday morning. One of them, we know their name. We have their mugshot, a 19-year-old, and we know the other 2 are minors. So we'll get into those details of that case.
Right. We should here momentarily begin the closing statements in the Bruce Foster trial. And then once those closing statements are wrapped up, then the case basically gets to the judge and we'll have to wait for a verdict out of that bench trial.
And we are talking to the folks in Mackinac Island because it was voted the top vacation spot in the entire Midwest. Wow. They beat out 1,000 places for this number 1 victory that they got. So we're going to talk to them about why it's so special there.
Yeah, and then it's nearly been exactly 25 years since the terrorist attacks on September 11th, but we have turned that tragedy into a day of service. So coming up, we'll be talking with organizers packing hundreds of food boxes on that day as a way to give back to those in need.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to our top story that we've been following this morning. The 3 arrests that were made in that deadly shooting that happened Sunday overnight, this last Sunday, and it killed a 20-year-old. And we know a 19-year-old has now been arrested and charged with murder. His name is Masamba Dai. And then there's 2 other teenagers that are charged with murder as well in this shooting. That's a look at Mr. Dai, who is charged with murder now. The other 2 teenagers were not showing their mugshots or releasing their names because they are 17 years old and 16 years old. But again, this happened in the short north overnight on Sunday, and the victim was 20-year-old Tyjion Clement, and he was killed. And this morning, supposedly around 9 a.m., but we know how the Franklin County court system works. They run a little late sometimes. He's supposed to be making his first court appearance before a judge. Yeah. So once that happens,
they've started court, but he's not up yet.
Yep, he's not up yet. We'll keep monitoring that. But the big question is, I live in this area. So many people live and work in the short north. They hang out there. Again, it's just a safety concern. And a lot of people are feeling like it's growing more and more dangerous. And why I'm saying this is because police don't exactly know what led up to this shooting.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of these things that we've thrown tons of money at
Especially this summer.
to try and fix, and it's been the same solutions as we've tried the past 3 summers at least, because if you remember in 2023, that was the year that they pretty much put in that really strict curfew. They shut down a huge section of High Street for a time after a big mass shooting then.
Right.
And so we keep trying these things, but when do we try something else?
Right. And so we know there's going to be more patrolling in that area this weekend and so on. But again, goes to your question, is that really what's working?
Yeah.
So again, we are waiting for 19-year-old Masamba Dai, who's charged with murder, to make his first court appearance in relation to this case. So we'll keep following the story. Right. Hopefully we get some more answers as to what led up to it all, but we'll keep following that for sure. Okay, switching gears now, we're going back to the Bruce Foster case. This is a bench trial that we've been following pretty closely all week. Deliberations have started, and we want to reiterate again, this is a bench trial.
Yeah.
So there is not a jury that's going to be deliberating. It's literally the judge himself.
So we still have to get through closing arguments today.
Yeah.
So the defense and prosecution have rested their cases. They both agree that in some way mental illness played a factor in this entire thing. However, it is basically the degree of mental illness and how that's going to play a part in this.
And did he know what he did was wrong?
Right, because Foster's defense does not argue the fact that he is the man who went inside this building and fired off those shots.
Right.
It's just to what degree did his mental illness play a part in this. His defense team continues to say, well, he was delusional at the time, didn't understand what was going on.
Thought the prosecution was off after him, just a lot of thoughts like that.
Yeah, while the Licking County prosecutor's like, okay, he might have been, but he was still lucid enough to be like, yes, what I was doing is wrong.
And yesterday we heard from multiple physicians and experts giving testimony about different interviews that were conducted after he had been arrested for this mass shooting. And Lacey Crisp has that story for us now.
Several doctors have examined Bruce Foster. They all agree Foster is mentally ill.
The question,
Did he know what he did was wrong?
Can you tell me what things he said about that day?
He heard a voice, an auditory hallucination, that said that he didn't have a choice. And that hallucination, in addition to his delusional beliefs, led him to believe that his life was on the line, that the members of the mafia, this organized crime family, these co-workers that he had at KDC-1, were not only plotting to kill him, but planned to kill him.
He told me that he was hoping to be found not guilty by reason of insanity because he wanted to go back to Central Ohio Behavioral Health.
The defense's expert argues Foster's delusions were so strong. While he knew hurting people was wrong, he felt he had no other choice to save his own life.
Mr. Foster was symptomatic with a severe mental disease or defect at the time of the events in question. And as a result of his severe mental disease or defect, he did not know the wrongfulness of the acts charged.
But the rebuttal expert for the prosecutor's office says she believes Foster was exaggerating some of his symptoms and knew what he was doing was wrong.
Yes, he told me that he had experienced homicidal ideation in the past. He in fact said that he didn't want to act in a violent way toward others because, in his words, he knew better.
And as a forensic psychologist who's doing a sanity evaluation, what does that mean to you?
That was notable. That was a notable data point because those are indications that he knew the wrongfulness of harming others.
Okay, and so Judge David Branstol, he is the judge proceeding over this case, and Lacey Crisp, our reporter who's been covering this extensively this past week, she asked him how long it's going to take him to deliberate and make a decision whether, it's guilty, not guilty, all of that. And he responded with a couple weeks. There's a ton of discovery he has to read through, as well as extensive medical records. So he didn't want to give a date, but he said it could take a couple weeks. But again, today, closing arguments are going to happen, and we'll have the latest on 10 TV News at noon, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, so that is the interesting part about a bench trial. Also, we do have that Short North suspect up in court right now. He just appeared, but it's a first appearance. Right. Those typically happen very, very quickly. See, it's already over.
Fast.
But
and they do it virtually too.
Yeah,
so it makes it even tougher to get it quick.
Than it used to be.
Alrighty. Well, we are going to, coming up, we are talking about campaign ads because they're obviously everywhere right now. But where's the line between persuasion and deception? Coming up, we are talking to our reporter, Doug Petcash, who covers all of this. And we're going to break down the ethics behind trying to get your vote through these commercials. We'll be back.
I'm Bryn Albizu, traffic anchor for 10 TV News this morning. My mission is simple, to help you get to where you're going quickly and safely. Because when your morning's on the move, so are we. Make the move to 10 TV News this morning, anywhere you watch.
Welcome back, 9:12 or 9:13 now on your Friday. Thanks for hanging out with us. We are already in the heat of political ad season.
It is here.
Seems like it's been about 3 months ago.
Right.
That was really, they started airing really early this year, and they've continued. But yeah, it's really pumped up now.
And we're already into attack ads as well. Mm-hmm. And the question has come up of really, how far is too far? Because you see some pretty extreme and out there statements made in these, and a lot of lines drawn that may or may not exist. And obviously one of these just came up this week regarding an attack ad on Sherrod Brown.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct. It was an ad against Sherrod Brown, as you mentioned, supporting John Husted, that was purchased by the National Republican Senatorial Committee, a PAC, in support of John Husted, featuring an ad about a deadly crash that happened on I-71 in Delaware County, in which a family of 3 were killed. It was Luke Linnea and Logan Saposky were killed in that crash. It was an accident in which a gentleman is accused of driving a semi-truck that caused the accident. And the question that came up is that the ad campaign, the ad used a photograph of the family, of the Saposky family, the 3, in the ad, and then also footage from the scene of the accident, including the fire, there was smoke billowing out of the car accident scene, the accident scene. And so the family of Linnea Saposky and her brother wrote a letter to her brother Jesse Mallon wrote a letter to the Husted campaign asking them to please take down the ad because they didn't give permission to use that photograph of the 3 of the family members. And so that's where the issue really revolves around is the use of that photograph.
Right. And you talked to a couple political experts regarding this, the legality and some of this gray area here. We'll take a listen.
Semi-driver Modou Ngom is charged with 3 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide and 4 counts of vehicular assault for the crash in which the Saposkis died. The ad in question shows a picture of Linnea, Luke, and Logan, as well as news video of the crash scene. A spokesperson for the family says in a statement, quote, "Our grief is not raw material for a campaign, and their images are not public property to repurpose for anyone's advantage." The family says neither they nor the photographer gave permission to use the photo and sent this letter to the Husted campaign asking them to stop airing the ad. 10 TV asked Senator Husted's campaign if the ad would be removed. A spokesperson told us the ad was created by the National Republican Senatorial Committee. So we also asked the NRSC if it would pull it. In a statement to 10 TV, the NRSC said in part, quote, "Our ad campaigns will continue to hold Sherrod Brown accountable." We asked 2 political science professors about the use of the photo in the ad.
If the family retains ownership of the image or the photographer retains ownership of the image and no permission has been given, they should not be using the image in the ad. This is the same kind of idea that applies to music licensing.
One of the things that's interesting about this ad is the connection they're trying to draw between this incident and Sherrod Brown is so tenuous. It's, wildly tenuous. But the connection now between the Republicans in Houston and this family is very direct. They're upset. They feel they were used, and they feel they were, in effect, ignored.
All right. And let's talk about what's happening now with the ad. Is it running any longer? It kind of lives online. What did the PAC say?
The PAC didn't comment specifically on the ad campaign. A person familiar with the ad campaign run told us that it had the commercial ran its course, its scheduled course, and is no longer running and has been replaced by other what they call creative, another ad or something in that rotation. This was mostly a streaming ad, and so it's been replaced, but it did not have anything to do with the family's request to have the photograph removed.
And when it comes to
or the ad removed,
like the background legality of making some of these claims. For example, I know I brought up the current Vivek ad it's talking to a woman in the Cincinnati area who's like, Amy Acton killed my mother. Well, her mother died in Kentucky. We pulled her obituary. Her mother died in Kentucky. So Amy Acton would not have had any.
And this of course, was about COVID lockdowns.
Yes, the COVID
and not
lockdowns.
being able to see somebody in a nursing home.
Right, while she was the acting director of the Department of Health. The woman's mother died, I think, 6 weeks after Amy Acton resigned from that position, also in Kentucky. So there are statements being made in that ad that are not correct. I mean, we cannot say where this woman was if she was in a nursing home in Ohio before she was transferred into hospice care in Kentucky, but there are statements being made in there that are not entirely truthful.
How far is too far?
When you talk to the experts, the political scientists, basically accuracy is not a requirement. In a nutshell. Okay. There has to be, I guess, at least some kind of truth to the matter, or at least some vague connection, but it's not really a rule. You can pretty much say, according to them, a campaign can say what it wants in an ad, and then it's up to the voters to decide, what to believe, what not to believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So accuracy, be careful.
It's
they always say, do your own research,
Right.
if you can. I mean, there's so much out there though, because it's not only that ad and ads, the Sherrod Brown, the anti-Sherrod Brown ad, but I mean, there are so many different ads about Sherrod Brown, about John Husted, about Vivek Ramaswamy, about Amy Acton, and other, races as well. You'll see occasionally, but those are the big, 4 candidates right now that we see all the time. But there's so many different commercials in rotation that.
Right. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
And people just get beat over the head with it, and the campaign or the political scientists also, say that negative campaigning does work to a degree. Sometimes it will keep people away from voting if they don't want to vote for that candidate, that message starts to sink in. For others, it may motivate them to get out and vote. So there's some gray areas as far as about the negative campaigning, but I think that the consensus is that voters get tired of it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, Doug,
Wears you down. Yeah.
Right, it does. Well, we're just getting started, kind of, honestly.
Yeah. You want to talk about Mackinac Island with me?
Yeah,
Sure.
You can stay here if you have time. All right. Well,
thanks, Doug.
Yeah,
All right.
Doug, thank you.
talking
Mackinac
to you guys.
Island was voted the #1 vacation spot in the entire Midwest. This is a big deal. Over 1,000 places were polled, and they won. So we're talking to them about why it's so special.
I'm Tracy Townsend, anchor at 10 TV News This Morning. My goal is simple, help you feel informed and connected. Because when news moves fast, you need a team that moves with you. Make the move to 10 TV News This Morning, weekdays from 5 to 9, anywhere you watch.
Welcome back to The Big Picture. It's 9:22 on your Friday. And if you're bored this weekend, we have something that you might be able to do. So we are talking about Mackinac Island up in Michigan being voted the #1 vacation spot, getaway in the entire Midwest. And joining us today to talk about it, we have the Managing Director of Island Tourism for Mackinac Island, Steph Caswell, joining us. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, good morning from Mackinac Island. Thanks for having me.
Hi there. So this has been named again the best weekend getaway in the entire Midwest. What makes this destination stand out from all the others?
Yeah, first of all, we're so honored by this recognition. Mackinac Island is truly not just a destination, it's a feeling that is hard to explain. We're probably best known for having no cars. So we've had a car ban since the late 1800s. So you leave your vehicle on the mainland, you get on a passenger ferry about 15 minutes to come over to the island. And then when you're here, you get around by walking, biking, and horse-drawn carriages. It's truly like stepping back in time, and Mackinac Island is just such a beautiful destination.
And obviously the end of the summer season is right around the corner, Labor Day being I guess next weekend. But we obviously still have plenty of warm time left the fall season. So when it comes to maybe making a fall trip to Mackinac Island, what are some of the great fall things people can expect?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're a May through October destination, and fall for us at the Tourism Bureau, we call this the perfect season. It truly is, it's like stepping back in time, like I mentioned, but then the fall season is really a time to kind of relax, breathe a little deeper, breathe in that fresh air, and just enjoy all that the island has to offer. After Labor Day, a lot of the families and kids are going back to school. So we see a slower pace here. We see, less crowds. We see a little bit cooler temps. I mean, we're always kind of in low 80s, high 70s, but even more so in the evenings, it drops a little bit more. And, it's nice to have a nice sweater on and be walking around. And then, of course, we have the color change. So we have we're 84% state park. So we have beautiful trees and we're surrounded by nature. And so every corner you turn, every, hopping on the bike and going on our 70 miles of trails, every view you see offers something a little different. So it's just a really fun time of the year.
And for people and families watching their budget, can they do Mackinac Island affordably?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to enjoy Mackinac is slow. We talk about a slow pace often because here without vehicles, you're going nowhere quickly. You're, calling a taxi, a horse-drawn taxi to pick you up, or you're walking to the next attraction or restaurant, whatever you want to do next. But for affordability, a day trip is great as well. So you can, come to the island on the ferry, and then from there, the island is, you can bring your own bikes. There is a fee for that, but then you have, the run of the island. You can also rent bikes while you're here and go explore. You can pack food or you can purchase food on the island. We do have a grocery store. It's the oldest family-owned grocery store in the U.S. There's so much history here. Or you can visit one of our restaurants and do takeout. So really the options are endless. People can, have a quick day trip and really get a good feel for the island and enjoy it, or they can stay multiple nights, which is my favorite, and get to hear the horses, see the freight and food being delivered outside in the mornings, and just slow down a little bit.
And Steph, for families thinking about a weekend trip, what are the top 3 must-dos on Mackinac Island?
Oh gosh. Top 3. Okay. Well, my favorite thing is to go exploring. When you come onto the island, you're right downtown on Main Street, and our Main Street is just about 3 blocks long. It's filled with restaurants, fudge shops, and many little local shops. But I love to go explore. So I mentioned we're 84% state park. I like to, hop on my bike and go around the island. It's 8.2 miles, or into the interior where there's just endless trails and views, like I mentioned. I would also suggest Fort Mackinac is a historical fort here on the island, and they do live demonstrations, reenactments. There are historical interpreters dressed up as soldiers explaining the history of the island and how we became the nation's second national park and Michigan's first state park. And then the third thing, this is going to sound maybe silly, but just take it slow. It's been a theme that we talk about, but it's so true. A packed day on Mackinac can be exhausting. I think the best way to enjoy Mackinac is to slow down. So bringing a blanket, enjoying a picnic in the park, maybe tossing the football, or enjoying a freighter or a ferry going by. I would say just take a moment to take it slow.
All right, Steph, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. I love those tips there. Just slow down. And really, it is a great fall destination with all the leaves changing.
It's about a 7.5 hour drive from
You can
Columbus.
make it. Yeah, it's not too bad. I feel like everyone in the Midwest, if it's over 6 hours, it's fine. Not a bad drive. That's
Maybe
how
for
I
some
grew
folks.
up. Okay.
All right.
Well, coming up in 2 minutes, we are talking about the 25th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. I can't believe it's been 25 years. But we're talking about how Columbus volunteers are honoring the victims through acts of service. We'll be right back.
I'm Jeff Hogan. I've been a journalist at 10 TV for more than 20 years. I don't just report about our community, I belong to it. And that's why we care so deeply about getting it right. And when local journalism is done right, it moves. It moves you to act, to speak up, or lend a hand. And yes, it moves your heart through the kind of human storytelling that stays with you wherever you are. And at 10 TV, we're here for all of it. These are the stories that move Central Ohio.
Welcome back to The Big Picture, 9:30 on your Friday. I'm Collin, she's Bryn, and right now we are joined by retired U.S. Army Colonel Bill Butler.
Good morning, guys.
Thanks so much
for having me. Yeah, thank you.
So this year marks the 25th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, and over these 25 years, we have taken this tragedy and turned it into a way to give back to our community. So many people still feel very connected to that. It's hard to believe it's been 25 years.
Yeah.
But here in Columbus, we're going to see hundreds of volunteers get together and take that day as a way to give back to hungry families in need. So let's talk a little bit about this project going on, because this is all happening at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum coming up.
Right.
Talk to me about this whole project, how it got going, and why it's extra special to do it this year.
Yeah, of course. So thanks for having me. And 18 months ago, we went through a strategic planning process at the museum, and we slightly adjusted our mission statement. So the mission statement now is to honor all veterans, elevate their stories, and amplify the power of service for everyone, everywhere. So the idea being, when people come into the museum, they see and hear stories of men and women who served our country in uniform. They took the uniform off. They still continue to serve their communities and give back in so many ways. So when we were getting ready to figure out the ceremony plans for September 11th in the 25th anniversary, we thought, what better way than to bring that action into reality by partnering with 911day.org and bringing the community together, like you said. And we'll bring in hundreds of people and provide a huge impact for Central Ohio. We'll pack anywhere from 110 to 115,000 meals that go to the Mid-Ohio Food Collective and serve families in need.
And do you know in perspective how many families that will be helping?
I don't know how they manage the distribution of the meals. I'm assuming, one meal per family, but it may be, multiple meals per family. But the reality is there's going to be a lot of people who are positively impacted.
And you retired from the U.S. Army in 2017 after 27 years of service. So the September 11th attacks happened fairly early in your career in the U.S. Army. How did those events really shape your tenure with the U.S. Army?
Well, it impacted my family and me and my friends tremendously, because we were very quickly doing back-to-back deployments. I myself, deployed to Iraq in 2003, deployed to Iraq in 2005, or Afghanistan 2005, deployed again to Afghanistan in 2009. So it was just a constant churn of deployments and being away from your family, coming back, reintegrating with them, because it's disruptive. You're gone for 12 months. And your kids, and your spouse have got to get used to you being back in the house, and you kind of disrupt the dynamic that has been established when you've been gone. And so it's impactful for the service member, obviously, because you're gone, but it's also impactful for the family members because their loved one is in harm's way. They're worried about them, and they come back and get reintegrated into the family dynamic. So. September 11th, a huge impact for my generation of service members and veterans. And it's also, really, just a couple of weeks ago was the 5th year anniversary of the fall of Afghanistan and the U.S. withdrawal. So you've got a lot of emotion tied up into that with Afghan war veterans as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so when the volunteers are coming together, packing all of these meals, and they look around and they see each other doing this act of service, what do you hope they take away from that experience?
The previous ceremonies that we did for September 11th, everybody, all the elected officials, me and others who spoke, first responders, their comments fell into one of two buckets. On September 11th, 2001, I was pick a location, and they told the story of how they found out about the terrorist attacks. Or they said, if only our community and country could come together like it was September 12th, 2001, when it didn't matter what party you were in, what religion, what race, what creed, you were just an American and everybody was supporting one another. So we decided to put that to action this year and really take away that moment, September 12th, and how everybody came together. And it didn't matter who you were or where you were. Everybody was supportive of one another. So we want that same sense of camaraderie and selflessness to, be part of the energy in the museum on September 11th this year.
And when it comes to that event, this coming September 11th, there's not really an open call for volunteers that's done, but there's still ways that people can show their support, come that day and help.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are fortunate to have, great partners in the city of Columbus. So we partner with the city council and council member Day Ackauer. So we're doing activations in the city of Columbus in 14 community centers 2 weeks before September 11th, 2 weeks after. So if people want to get involved and give back to their community in some way, they can come to those community center activations. We're also doing the same program with county commissioners. So we've got 4 activation sites within Franklin County, outside of the city of Columbus. So there's many opportunities in the month of September for hundreds, if not thousands, of people to come together and service to others.
And there's a whole generation now that was not alive during 9/11. So hosting an event like this, a major volunteer effort, how do you hope this teaches that next generation that wasn't alive when that happened to realize the importance of it and realize the importance of coming together and pushing forward?
You read a lot of stories and news reports about this, the younger generation having this lack of connectedness, and friendship circles are really small and non-existent because everybody's on their phone and on social media. And so this provides one way that people can get involved in their community. Friends can come together and support these activations, and really learn about the importance of camaraderie and human connection and giving back to others, and how it makes you feel good. It makes that person who's the recipient of whatever that act is feel good, that somebody thought about them and is taking care of them, and it makes that person who's doing that act equally feel good because they're helping somebody in need.
And this year is probably an especially good year for these younger folks who don't have the recollection or weren't even born at that time to take that time to learn, because not only is this going on, but there's a number of events and remembrance ceremonies, all sorts of things going on all across not just Central Ohio, but the country for 25 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're fortunate Columbus is a very giving community. And, we talk about the Columbus Way and Columbus Partnership. And it really is true. Everybody comes together when there is a need, and there is a need. So we're fortunate to be able to partner with Mid-Ohio Food Collective, 911day.org, and others to do this and help the community.
All right. Anything else happening at the Vets Museum that you want to let people know
Yeah,
about?
so September 12th, we're doing a Ruck and Remember. And so it's a easy 5K walk. It's free for people to come, but we'll have along the 5K route just moments, veterans from Afghanistan and Gold Star family members will talk and share the story of their service, their loved one, just as another way to educate the community and bring people together.
Well, thank you so much for your service.
Yeah, it's my honor to serve. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, retired U.S. Army Colonel Bill Butler joining us now. So coming up next, AI is seemingly everywhere these days, but after a recent report found that OpenAI's AI agents kind of went rogue and hacked into another business and then seemingly tried to cover it up, there are questions being raised about when and how should we crack down on AI usage and monitoring. We're joined by a tech expert next.
I'm Yolanda Harris. I'm a journalist at 10 TV News. I don't just report about our community, I belong to it. And that's why we care so deeply about getting it right. And when local journalism is done right, it moves. It moves you to act, to verify, to volunteer. And yes, it moves your heart through the kind of human storytelling that stays with you wherever you are. And at 10 TV, we're here for all of it. These are the stories that move Central Ohio.
Welcome back to The Big Picture, 9:40 on your Friday morning. So we're talking about artificial intelligence and how it's getting smarter and more autonomous by the day. Joining us right now, we have Nicole Jackson with Optimum Technology. So let's get to the beginning of this, because there was a recent report that examined an experiment where hundreds of AI agents basically carried out their own attack and then tried to hide what they were doing. What does this tell us about where we're at with AI?
Sure. So I think that we differentiate capability and likelihood. Today, artificial intelligence is at scales with agents, which is an ability for a large language model to take really complex data and take action. It is now transforming into things that can do penetration testing, things that security experts used to do before. It's taking all this aggregated data and it's able to help us understand vulnerabilities. But those same vulnerabilities it exploits can exploit us. And so, we're at a really interesting collision point, and what we want AI to do, a lot of deep conversations about what should be applied, what standards need to be applied, how we safely and securely ensure these applications are not doing things that are rogue to us. But I think it also tells us that we have a responsibility socially to have these conversations and to ensure that those that are deploying them understand those frameworks and they're deploying them safely.
And I know at the global level, we've seen different countries take different approaches at how it's going to regulate this. Right now, the U.S. currently doesn't have any overarching widespread legislation when it comes to managing AI. And we did see earlier this year some executive orders kind of overstepping what states were trying to do. So really it's coming down to individual businesses to police themselves. And kind of where you work, Optimum Technologies, it's all about kind of incorporating this technology safely and securely into the business model. So when you're working with clients, how does that interaction work when it's like, okay, here's how we can use this, but do it in a way that's not going to open us up to vulnerabilities, and then also in a way that keeps us working ethically?
Sure. So I think that Optimum's whole perspective here is in understanding the frameworks that exist and deploying them. So we have two primary drivers right now. Nationally, we have something built by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's called NIST AI RMF. It has 1,100 total controls, a lot of information. But the key there is really top down, really helping organizations understand how they should appropriately govern, how they should train. And we align that really to what they're actually capable of maintaining at this time or sustaining at this time. So we think through things like, how have our staff been trained and what is the extension of that training? We think through things like data readiness. What type of data are we going to expose to an agent or to an LLM? And how safe is that based on our use case and capability? At Optimum really has been primarily focused in the public sector for 42 years, really helping our public sector partners. But we've also been advising our private sector partners because they're all dealing with the same issue. And the second standard is by the Institutes of Standards organization. It's called 42001. It's much more technical, very much for a practitioner, but there we are doing the same things. What are our responsible and ethical standards that we're going to use? What are our principles as an enterprise? If we say we want to be accountable, how are we going to be accountable? And are the people who are accountable for that system trained appropriately in order to be able to do that?
Do you anticipate at some point that we would see some federal legislation come down on how AI is managed?
My personal, and this is a personal opinion, not a professional one, but my personal opinion there is likely not, just based on different states have different goals. I think that different states are at very different places right now in developing these regulations. And I look back at historical precedents when we had this question for privacy. We saw the European Union take an act with something called GDPR. We did not see the same stance from the United States still to this day. It is unlikely that we will.
And so the Trump administration, they've emphasized innovation and reducing these regulatory barriers. What would their argument be for that? And what are the risks with those guardrails?
Sure. So I think first if we really zoomed out to almost like a macro level and we said, well, where are we? We are in essentially a global arms race, right? The goal here is to understand the functional capability of these systems and how they're going to affect our GDP. But that pressure is directly meeting social pressure, sentiment. What do we want these systems to do? And I mean, I think realistically, the executive orders that have been put in place to ensure that we are still able to compete globally. But that will have a direct friction, I think, with what is actually feasible. So now we put that onus on organizations to understand, well, what do our constituents want? We put that onus on governments. Well, what is the sentiment of our population and what are they going to accept? The conversation about data centers, the conversation about meaningful use and appropriateness and all of those in that discourse. And I think that we're at a social collision with both right now.
Right. And it does bring up that because I know last year and really the year before we saw layoffs in the business sector of people going, okay, well, we can use these AI agents for this. But then in recent months, we've seen kind of a walk back from that of realizing that these aren't ready to do everything that we could trust a human to do. And then obviously we have the massive data center pushback going on right now. So there are a lot of social pressures going on. And are there still a lot of economic pressures, though, kind of forcing the hand of large companies to adopt AI usage?
So I think there's an and there more than an or. So I think if we think about the layoffs that happened, a big push was like enthusiasm. So you think about 2022 and ChatGPT comes out, everyone's excited, humans were using it. And those same humans were also executives that were ideating on how can I use this in my work? But there we have a human being with individual context interacting with the chatbot, which is fundamentally different than an organization or enterprise being ready. What I personally found in embedding with a lot of organizations is that their data is not at a state of readiness. So it's a huge assumption, but human beings store a lot of information in their brains and they're not documented. The data may not actually be at a state of readiness to consume. And so some of the pushback and transformation has been, we had a push for enthusiasm happening. We think we can do all of these things. And on the other side, well, it turns out that we may not be at a state of readiness to do that, and there's our friction. But I do think that we're now at a leveling, and we will get there. And organizations do still need to compete, but they also have to be very thoughtful about what that means and the appropriate use case to do so.
And if we look at, this conversation maybe 5 years from now, what do you think AI will be capable that it's not reliably able to do right now?
Interestingly enough, there was a study from Anthropic in 2025, and it essentially stated that AI is only doing about 25% today of what it's capable of. If we inverse that question and ask companies instead, what do they want AI to be capable of, and what does readiness look like for them? I think that that's the question that's going to happen in the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. Really looking at the systems and what they are capable of and what we want them to do versus what we know we need humans to do, because human judgment is the biggest driver for success.
Right. Wow.
All right.
Great
Nicole
conversation. Thank you so much.
Nicole Jackson, the Chief Technology Officer over at Optimum Technology. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. Coming up next, we're going to wrap it up with a look at some more of your top headlines of the day.
Not every weather impact day is dangerous, but plenty are inconvenient. That's where our weather impact team comes in with the details that matter the most. Live, local, whenever you need it. No waiting, no guesswork. Stay in the know and be prepared with 10 TV.
Okay, welcome back. We got about 10 minutes left on our show for this week because it's Friday.
Woo.
But we are talking about tariffs and toilet paper.
And do not panic buy.
Do not panic buy. But Collin, we'll get into this, but I'm never worried about toilet paper or if there's going to be enough. Or honestly, the cost, because for me, that is a non-negotiable that I will always buy.
Toilet
Do you
paper,
know what I mean?
stamps, and gasoline are like the three things that it's like, we have to have it.
You have to have it. Exactly. So you pay whatever the price.
Yeah.
I mean, gas is that way too, like you just said. So, okay. If you've been following the news, we know that the Trump administration, they're placing 50% tariffs on Canadian goods.
Yes.
There's a whole thing going on with that. And then Canada is announcing retaliatory tariffs that will go in effect September 8th. So big back and forth with all that. But the reason why U.S. consumers, us, we are a little skeptical about these tariffs because it is a possibility that the extra cost could fall on the consumer. Some companies might decide to absorb those costs and make it easier for us, but some companies just won't be able to do that. And that's because we get so many products from Canada that we use in the products that we make in the U.S. Like we're talking about wood products, paper products then.
A majority of our lumber for homes comes from Canadian forests in Manitoba and Alberta.
Car materials, dairy products, Canadian alcohol. But going back to the topic of wood and paper, the pulp that is used to make paper, toilet paper, it is coming from Canada. So our manufacturers, they have said that they have plenty of toilet paper, but we all have PTSD and flashbacks from COVID. Let's be real.
Yeah.
People were going
Which was the
mad
craziest
over
thing to hoard during that pandemic.
I was in like the canned food section being like, I got to get like beans, things that are going to last me a while if I can't go back to the grocery store. The last thing on my mind was toilet paper in that moment. But having said all this, experts are warning, logistic experts are asking people not to panic buy in this situation because that just puts everything in a tougher situation. And we actually spoke to a logistics professor, Keely Croxton, about this.
Yeah, I think we all have a little PTSD about toilet paper after COVID.
Yeah, so then she went on to say, you can't read the tea leaves, basically saying you can't really make predictions about how these tariffs will directly impact us because, like I said, it could either fall on us or some of these companies might choose to absorb it. But
so much of all of our industries are so intertwined because
intertwined.
Up until really 9/11, we had an open border that we just kind of crossed.
I know.
And our auto sector for the longest time was very much like Canada made these parts, we made these parts, and they went
in Mexico. We can't forget Mexico too.
And just
it's
looking
all this highway of
and just
parts.
Looking at the Canadian side of things. I think there was at one time the statistic was a car from beginning to end crosses the U.S.-Canadian border 5 times.
Yeah.
From the time it starts to the time it's on the lot.
Yeah, we definitely depend on each other. And, for years there's been this mutual respect that, we are neighbors and we work together on things. So this trade war, it is concerning for certain businesses that do rely on Canadian exports for their business to profit and make money and make a living. So the cherry on top of all this is that there's been an executive order signed by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to rename Lake Ontario to Lake America.
Right. As this trade war continues to go back and forth. And there's also, the Canadians have already fought back. The premier, which is really like our governor, but the premier of Nova Scotia called it foolishness.
Right.
He's like, what?
So you're probably thinking, well, this has happened before. The Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. So when this happens, the Interior Department of the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, they are directed to update federal maps and documents and government references. This order is about 30 days for them to implement that. But it's important to note that this does not mean the entire world needs to refer to Lake Ontario as Lake America. It is up to international organizations, other countries can call it what they want. The governor of New York said we're going to be calling it
Lake Ontario.
And Ontario has an indigenous meaning back like 400 years.
This lake has had this name since 1652.
Yeah. Exactly. So, people, they're standing by that. It's Lake Ontario. And obviously, like you said, Canada's fighting back on that as well.
Right. And it's going to be interesting because also you mentioned the Gulf of Mexico / Gulf of America debacle. The moment you because if you look at your Apple Maps or your Google Maps, it shows Gulf of America when you're inside the United States. But the moment you leave the U.S. border, it turns back into the Gulf of Mexico. So if you cross into Canada or you cross into Mexico or
it will change.
Go to Europe, it goes back to the Gulf of Mexico due to geolocation. I did check my Google Maps this morning.
I'm checking right now. No, I don't see it.
Yeah.
I see actually nothing.
Oh, yeah. If you zoom, at least mine shows
it. Says Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
Well,
for now.
Again, they have 30 days to implement that.
So, but I mean, also because, Lake Ontario has an indigenous meaning. It is not named after the province. The province is named after the lake and the indigenous people there.
Right. And so
Lake Huron is the same way.
Yeah. I mean, the lakes were here before us. I mean, the entire state of Ohio was underwater. That's why we have these fossil fish in our fossils because, I mean, okay, I'm not going to get into the history
That's why
of
Chillicothe
Ohio.
starts
You don't
getting
want me
hilly.
to talk about that, but I'll get off my soapbox there. But basically, the Trump administration, this executive order is pointing to the fact that he's trying to, protect the Great Lakes in the U.S. when it comes to investing in the Great Lakes with the ice breaking, the erosion that's happening there.
And I mean,
again, it all ties back into
who owns the lake is like split right down the middle.
Of course.
Of like the maritime line is like right there of like, okay, half is Canada's, half is ours.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting. We've stopped talking about the name change for the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
How long does it take for us to kind of forget about this one?
I know.
But this one is obviously tied much, much more to a trade war that's now gone on.
And the Trump administration is obviously making a statement that they are really serious about these tariffs.
Right.
So again, Canada fighting back. They have retaliatory tariffs going into effect on September 8th.
Yeah. And I mean, you've seen the first time this happened, Canada pull U.S. alcohol off the shelves. If you go into a lot of Canadian stores, there are signs in their stores saying "Buy Canadian," which they have a similar problem as we do. Is like to find a wholly made Canadian or a wholly made American product is very hard.
I mean, you can't even buy a car
and when
like
you can,
that.
they're very expensive. But you do see a large. This has been a uniting moment for their their population because you saw that whole separatist movement in Alberta. Even they're kind of back on of like, we don't like this tariff aggression coming on right now from the United States.
I just wish we would get a little more creative. Right?
Renaming lakes.
Just Lake America.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because Ontario's,
I'm not in the Trump
I was going to say, I was like,
though.
we could have named it, Lake New York because it touches that, or like Ohio. Well, like what is the other state that it borders? I'm doing my geography in my mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, because Ontario is a province, not a country. So it's like we could have just renamed it like Lake New York. I don't know.
Lake something. Okay. Well, we got 2 minutes left, Collin.
Yeah,
Let's
what else
talk
is
about,
going on?
Buckeye Lake is reopening this weekend.
Yes.
This is a big deal. Obviously, they were hit so hard by the severe weather we had. Historic flooding, to be honest. And we actually just learned that there were 4 confirmed tornadoes, right?
Yes.
Colin? And
it was, at least there were 3 just in Franklin County.
Yeah.
Wow. 3 in Franklin County, but this also, I think we're at 18 now confirmed for the state. And possibly more. It's 18 and counting, which means we have now surpassed the August record for tornadoes.
Wow. And we already passed the precipitation, record as well, or we're close, or we're still in
I can't
second?
remember if we have passed into, we now hold the record, but I know we were in second place.
Yeah. Well, this weekend's supposed to be beautiful weather. I mean, if you want to go out on the lake, it's going to be a little hot and steamy. Yeah, here's our 7-day forecast.
83, not bad.
No, and 87 on Sunday. It's going to get hot again. And then as we look into next week,
I don't want those 90s.
Fall is not near, looking at that forecast.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of icky.
We've been kind of spoiled this week, though, because there's a crispness in the air that we haven't had in a while. It feels good.
Pretty gentle summer, sans those 2 weeks where it was ridiculous.
Right.
But we got pretty fortunate this year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of stuff going on, too. We got, obviously, Comedy Fest still going on.
Oh, yeah.
Buckeye Lake reopened. The KOA Campgrounds reopens today. The gay softball tournament kicks off Sunday.
Coming to town.
So a lot of stuff.
Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you on Monday at 9 a.m.
See ya.